I'm now joined by Georgia Belinsky, VP, Global Head of Brand and Creative, Royal Bank of Canada. RBC has been listed in the Kantar BrandZ Global Top 100 since 2007 and has seen a very healthy 43% increase in 2025's Global Top 100. Georgia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Adele.
Now, as you know, this year sees the 20th edition of Kantar BrandZ's Most Valuable Global Brands. And clearly the world and the marketing industry have changed a huge amount in that time, and for good reason. As someone who's been involved in marketing over that period, I'd love to ask you about what you've learned so far and how you think the industry will continue to develop. So let's start with some questions about your own career journey to date. Please, could you briefly describe your own career path which led to your current position?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today, Adele. I spent the first decade of my career agency side, where I was really able to learn both the business of our clients across consumer categories, but also the business of creative and the creative idea. And I see those two core areas as really central to how we're building brands here at RBC, both a deep knowledge of the business itself, but also a deep respect and appreciation for creative and the culture required to develop breakthrough creative. From there, I went on to lean into strategy. From a strategic perspective, we've built both a brand strategy and an insights practice here at RBC that are born from one single team. And from here, we've had the great privilege to begin building the brand building practice at RBC, born from strategy, analytics, insights, and now creative and our internal brand. So it's been a phenomenal journey, picking up pieces along the way that have informed both a deeply business-centric, but also creative-centric culture of brand building here at RBC.
Excellent. Well, you may have touched on this already, but I'm wondering, what's the most significant lesson you've learned about building great brands over your career so far?
The most significant lesson I've learned in building brands over the last 2 decades has really been the importance of keeping the core of that brand simple. We often prioritize simplicity over sophistication. And I see in the industry and oftentimes the sort of natural reflex too, in the brand making and management side of the process to really overfill the brand. And what I mean by that is to put so much into the articulation of the brand, the strategy of the brand, that it actually can become really difficult to execute. And so we tend to prioritize keeping that singular focus, that singular definition, that singular seed of a brand relentlessly simple, so that as it executes across all consumer touch points, the beauty of that simple brand is that it can be adapted limitlessly. It can be remixed, reinterpreted, rethought through by every single department, not just marketing, but customer experience, product design, analytics, insights, customer experience. The beauty of a brand is how far it can travel across an organization, the value it can create throughout all businesses across the enterprise. But it's impossible to do that if the brand itself isn't simple, coherent, concise. At RBC, our brand is one word, it's ideas. And it's purposely simple and distinct so that in all areas of the company, we can iterate limitlessly on the idea of making ideas happen. And it's that simplicity that has allowed the brand to travel as far and wide as it has. And also it's that simplicity that will allow us to continue to adapt, reiterate, reimagine, remix, and reinterpret the brand for years to come.
Fantastic. So simplicity and clarity are key. Now, what do you think have been the biggest shifts over the last 2 decades in both consumer needs and the ways that brands engage with consumers?
I see a lot of brands today having fun with their distinctive brand assets. And what I mean by that could be a logo, product packaging, iconography, color. And in some cases, brands can do that really well when there's a deep well of emotional connection to that brand and even potentially to the assets themselves. You know, it could be the McDonald's arches or the Levi's jeans patch. But in some cases, I feel, if I'm critical for a moment, that as an industry, we've gone a little bit far on our quest for branding. I think, some of the things that have driven this are the channel mix, the proliferation of choice, the volume of content, images, and messages that we're all seeing as consumers every single day has created a bit of a reflex within brand and branding as an industry to potentially over brand things and to really lean on our brand assets in a much more functional and rational way to denote a brand in a piece, to brand a piece, to mark a piece with our brand. But what I feel we're often leaving on the table are the more implicit cues that are really important to brand building. So not only what we can visualize in a piece and what we can say, but ultimately how someone feels as part of our brand. And so we've created a bit of a practice where we tend to be quite loud, I think, with our brand assets. And it's something that we're always correcting for on the RBC side to make sure that we're not only appealing to that more rational sort of functional mind, but also the more implicit emotional mind as well.
Interesting. So going beyond the functional, wonderful. How would you say the role of insights has changed over this period?
At RBC, we integrate our insights measurement and analytics practice right within the brand strategy team. And from what we've seen in the marketplace, we consider it relatively special and unique to really view the insights practice as a core strategic enabler of the brand. It has not only helped us identify the brand positioning space that helps us grow equity in the places we need to, but it also helps us manage and find new insight for how to grow that brand within that positioning space. And so by embedding insights and analytics right with strategy, it becomes both a strategic enabler and also a tool for governance where we can help the organization through data-driven practices, through brand analytics and creative analytics, to see the power of brand building in a very objective way. And that's absolutely critical to the future of brand building. Analytics and insights will only become more important and more central for how brands optimize within their equity spaces long term. And so to anchor that practice directly within brand strategy, to cultivate a strategy team and a strategy discipline that's born from data and analytics first is absolutely essential.
Fascinating. So embedded insights and analytics providing an independent point of view. I love that. How has your brand evolved over the last 2 decades? What do you consider to be the key points on that journey, as well as the current challenges and opportunities?
Our view on the brand is much different. We go to market as one RBC brand across all geographies, client segments, products and services globally. And that view of one RBC brand has garnered us more share of voice in the marketplace than previous, but it's also garnered us a more meaningful position in the hearts and minds of consumers. At the heart of that brand has been a long-term strategic journey to identify an equity space that both captures the strengths of the RBC brand today, but also helps us build the equity we know the bank needs, the business is driving for, and our leadership is pointing to in the future. We call it both building the bank of today and the bank of the future at the same time. And that strategy pivots around ideas. Ideas Happen Here is RBC's brand platform, introduced in 2021 at the Tokyo Olympics. And cut to today, we've recently relaunched a new creative expression for that Ideas Happen Here platform at the 2025 Super Bowl with Your Ideas Happen Here. It's a deep commitment to the consumer to make their ideas happen, and also pivoting around the notion of personalization, the fact that as people, we all have ideas that drive us for our families, for our businesses, for our personal lives, for our professional lives. And RBC is an institution that's committed to helping make those ideas happen. And so it's a really rich territory for us to pivot the brand around globally. We have an adaptive brand system that we've built around that, whether that's how our advisors engage with clients in branch, whether that's our mobile app, our marketing, what we say, and also how we do things at RBC, all aligned to an institution committed to making ideas happen.
That's great, wonderful. Well, you talked about ideas and you've talked about advertising, which makes me wonder, are there any particularly successful campaigns for your brand that stand out for you over this period of time?
At RBC in Canada, we recently launched a really powerful creative extension to our brand platform, Ideas Happen Here, called Your Ideas Happen Here. We launched this most recently at the 2025 Super Bowl. And what it is a unique adaptation of our brand specifically for the personal bank. And what it allows us to do is to really unlock the global brand platform for the retail customer. And what we've done is pivoted the brand platform around their ideas. The insight driving the campaign is around the notion that as people, it's our ideas that shape us. We're working on ideas every single day, whether it's ideas for our family, ideas for our own life, ideas for our business, ideas for our profession. Ideas have a deep humanity in them, and by pivoting our brand platform specifically around the retail customers' ideas, we've unlocked a ton of value across our lines of business for how we can go to market in a more coordinated approach through the lens of the customer's ideas themselves. The underlying core of this creative extension is the realization that people don't wake up every day thinking about financial products or services, but they do wake up thinking about the ideas they have for their lives, the ideas they want to make happen for those that matter most to them. And if we can help enable those ideas as a bank, if we can be a partner on that journey, we can find that meaningful customer relationship that's so important to us at RBC.
But of course, consumer behaviour is always evolving. What current trends do you think brands need to pay the most attention to for the future? And what are the implications for marketing in your category and sector and for the industry generally?
The future of brand fascinates me. And, one of the major trends that we're looking at and really solving for across our brand system at RBC is this mass distribution of brand. And what I mean by that is the network of brand experiences has never been wider in a client's life. Clients are going to more service providers for more services and products. They're more used to accessing so many more brands than they have in the past. And it's this proliferation of choice that's both a threat to the business, but also something really unique and interesting to solve for from a brand perspective. I would layer onto that this notion of disintermediation of the customer experience. More and more, especially as consumers go to Gen AI to solve for their key questions, to help start their journey, whatever they're looking for within a category, a product, or a service, is less of that one-to-one relationship that a brand has the opportunity to have like they have in the past. And so it actually means that brand is more important than ever. It just means that the laws of competition and the rules for brand are going to be very different. The distribution of that brand experience across such a wider network means that we have to think about brand in a more adaptive and unique way. It can't be just about the rational overt messaging. It has to be much more about engaging all of the senses throughout that entire customer journey so that it's very clear what the RBC brand experience is, knowing that that experience is going to be delivered in so many different ways, through voice, through a screen, through an in-person experience than ever before. And so that brand system needs to be that much more adaptive.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Georgia, and huge congratulations again to you and the whole RBC team for your result in BrandZ's Global Top 100 2025.
Thank you so much for having me, Adele. It was a pleasure to be here.